Welcome to From a Woman to a Leader, a podcast dedicated to discussing the challenges and providing tips for women in tech leadership. Hi, I'm your host, Limor Bergman-Gross, and in each episode, we'll hear from other successful women in tech, sharing their stories, insights, and advice. Join us as we empower each other to reach our full potential in the tech industry. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. And today, I'm super excited to have here with me Julissa Germosen. And Julissa is a trailblazing leader in the tech industry. She has impressive careers, spanning roles at Microsoft, Salesforce, and now she is a speaker, author, and business strategy consultant. And we're going to talk about a topic that is so important and not talked enough about. We're going to talk about the wealth gap, and especially for Latina leaders. Hi, Julissa, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Limor. I'm so honored to be on your podcast, and I think this is an important conversation, so I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. It is very important, and I'm so excited. So let's maybe start a little bit with you and your background. And you mentioned in our pre-call that you kind of call yourself Café con Leche Latina.
Yes.
Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I am Dominican. I am an immigrant. I was born in my country, and like many immigrants, my family came to this country. And so Dominicans many of them are mixed race, right? So we are European, the Spaniard, side, Spaniard, Portuguese, African, mostly West African, and indigenous. My mix also has, Middle Eastern and ancestry and so many others. So I consider myself café con leche Latina, brown Latina, just to honor the diversity of my racial and ethnic makeup. So that's what I call myself. In terms of my career, I started my career in at a tech startup actually. It was a minority owned tech startup in New Jersey, and I was the 45th employee. And I was their first salesperson, their first sales director, and then their first sales and marketing director. And I was responsible for the Microsoft partnership. And so from there, I was recruited into Microsoft and spent almost 14 years there. And I started in sales and really moved my career into partner management. And then I started working in our ISV organization, helping our ISV partners develop their solutions and their technologies for our mutual customers. And I really loved that area of the business. And so then from there, I worked in Microsoft Learning Experiences. And so that organization was responsible for education technology. And so what I did as my role as a worldwide business development manager, I was responsible for Latin America, the Eastern Seaboard, and Canada, and did some work in EMEA and APAC as well. And so what we did was large scale technology implementations and partnerships with governments and ministries of education all over the world. The way that I saw my career at Microsoft was really deliberate, frankly. I wanted a career that went local. So I worked in the New York, New Jersey district, then national with the ISV practice and worked with partners across the US, and then global, working in Microsoft Learning Experiences. So when my last role at Microsoft, I knew would be my last role. And so because I sort of achieved that goal, right? And then I was recruited to Salesforce and worked in their .org organization. And there I helped, global strategic nonprofit organizations transform their digital, footprint and transformation. And then from there, I started my own college and career consulting business and took a little bit of a career break, just to kind of, I had a family member who was ill at the time, but I still wanted to, uh, work and help others. So I did a bit of coaching. Then when I went back into the workforce, I worked for a smaller organization. When I say smaller, it was a high growth, 250 million organization. So to me, that was smaller, and helped led their strategic alliances. So I worked with and led the partnerships with Microsoft globally, Facebook, Google, Indeed. And it was a different area of a business, of tech business that I did because it was in the HR and HCM space. So the thing that's fantastic about tech is, you can really sort of grow your career in different areas of the business and learn along the way. That's critically important to me. And then from there, after I did that for a number of years, I was recruited back into Salesforce and then worked in their alliances and channels organization and partner strategy and operations, and led their partner enablement for their 2,000 SI partners in North America. So, and then now, I'm writing a book, I'm doing strategy and consulting and speaking. And so it's been quite a ride.
Yeah, it has. And such an impressive career. And I want to congratulate you on taking very, bold move to leave a very, very successful career and
Yeah.
start your own venture.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Yes, it is. And it's something that I'm seeing a lot of people who've had, long careers do as well. And it's definitely not easy. It's a challenge to grow a business, as you know, but it's absolutely rewarding.
Yes, I can relate to that. It's rewarding. And I think probably we both felt that that was the right timing for us to do that.
Yes, yes. And we're going to talk about money and generational wealth and the wealth gap and all that. I definitely had a number in mind, when I thought about when I will leave, corporate full time, right? And so I think that's the strategic lens, right? When you think about your career, like when is it time to say, hey, I'm going to do my own thing and leave that, day to day, but also provide value because the experiences that you've had, because that's important too.
Absolutely. And you mentioned like you see yourself as a brown Latina.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, how did it feel? Have you ever felt, I don't know, in any way isolated
Yeah.
or underrepresented in the corporate world?
Yeah. So, it's interesting because when I first started, in tech, uh, as a young woman in her 20s, and even actually throughout my career, there were many instances where I was either the only woman. Uh, I say it's the start of the onlys, right? The beginning of the onlys. You're the only woman. You're the only woman of color, or you're the only person of color, and you're the only immigrant. And so, what that does, it's interesting because I was raised in the U.S., educated in the U.S., and so there's sort of this duality. You're not from here and you're not from there. There's a saying in Spanish, no soy de aquí, no soy de allá. You're not from here, you're not from there. Like, where do you belong, right? And so there were many instances of feeling that in growing up in Korea, and I think that's quite common for people who are immigrants or people who are just different in some ways. It's very common. So yeah, there's been many of that, and it's funny because I don't necessarily think of myself, like when I'm walking into a meeting or walking into a room, as a brown woman or a Dominican. I just think, hey, I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to get something done. I'm here to negotiate. I'm walking in as my business self. And then when other people sort of address you or bring it up, that's when you're like, gosh, I'm seen as different. And so that could be a bit, jarring, but we've got to navigate that because it's just the way it is, right? Because there's just not enough Latinas and not enough Latina leaders in the tech industry, right? And so, if you think about, this is a really jarring, statistics of the 63 million Hispanics and Latinos in the US, only 7% of Latinx talent work in tech. 7%. And of that 7%, 4% are in leadership roles. And then when you take that, 2% are women in leadership roles. So it's like you're a fraction of a percentage point. There's just not enough to really, to have there's just not enough. So yeah, solving for that is.
It's not enough. And I think one of the challenges are that because there is not enough, maybe others don't feel that it's something that is possible for them. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem.
Yes, and there is that. And I also think that, for me in my career, there's been that feeling of isolation, but that's when you need to really find, the people that will support your career. And they may not always look like you. It is a benefit when someone looks like you. It just is, right? Because then you've got sort of like you're watching that leader and what they're doing and who they're like. But the truth is that I've been able to benefit from people who've been my allies that see me and the value that I bring to the organization and invest in me. And many of those people, particularly in the beginning of my career, did not look like me at all, right? And so I think there is that challenge. There is a challenge of allyship, right? And if we can solve for that and garner more mentorship, sponsorship, all of those things, right, help you build and grow in your career. I would not have been able to grow in my career without, a sponsor in particular. So all those things is just, yeah, because it becomes a challenge.
Yeah, and I can relate to what you're saying. Actually, the biggest supporters in my career were white men.
Yeah.
The people who pushed me, who has supported me the most, which is super important. But we're not going to talk specifically about that. I wanted to ask you about a very, very interesting statistics that you shared with me about Latinas and their kind of business ownership. How many of them are starting a business?
What's interesting about money, right, is we're not necessarily comfortable talking about it, right? And what I have seen, both anecdotally and in the data, is Latina women, are the fastest growing demographic of people who are starting businesses. And I wonder why, right? I wonder why. And I think part of it, just anecdotally, is hey, I've tried the traditional method. I've tried the traditional path. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to promote myself. I'm going to grow a business, whether it's a tech, but even, I'm part of an organization that invests in Latin owned businesses. And the majority are startup tech businesses. And the majority of those are founded by women. And it's very interesting because this is what we're seeing, right? There's many paths to building wealth and generational wealth. And I think Latinas are saying, hey, I'm not going to rely on the traditional path that when I was growing up maybe was, challenging, right? And, they're starting also, jobs as influencers and social media presence and their own businesses. So there's more ways than one, right? For Latinas to grow in their wealth. So it's just an interesting thing that we're seeing. The Latinas are just taking the reins and say, hey, I'm going to build something for myself.
And let's talk about, go back to your experiences. Can you share any instances where, your identity may have influenced your professional experiences, either positively or negatively?
Yeah. So I think it's what's interesting about the Latinx culture, right? If you're raised by traditional, parents, I was raised by very traditional Dominican parents, the work ethic is extremely strong. And also the language around work that, we're raised in, and it's very common in many Latin American countries, is work hard, be humble, keep your head down, and you will be rewarded. Other people will notice your and reward you. That does not necessarily serve us well in tech or in any corporate, landscape when you're navigating your career. So we've got to really think about, how do we honor our heritage, but also understand that there are lessons that we've been taught that we've got to sort of shift around really speaking up about money, pay, promotions, and all of that if we really want to grow, not just grow in our career, but build the wealth that we want to build. Because the thing that's really interesting, and one of like the best advice that a mentor gave me, and this mentor was really interesting. He is completely different from me, right? I am a 5'3" brown Dominican Latina immigrant. He's like a 6'5", white male. I'm a Christian. He's, another religion, completely different. And that's why I chose him. I chose him because I thought he is different from me, CRO, and he gave me one of the best pieces of advice. And the advice was actually, where do you want to end your career? Making what kind of money? And I thought, this is the first time ever someone's having a mentorship conversation that's really a financial conversation. It's never happened before. And I just appreciate that, because that's counterculture, right? And so we're like busting all of those narratives and all of those things that we've grown up with. There's another saying in our culture, for women, calladita eres más bonita. And what that means is when you're quiet, you're prettier. So that keeps us silent in so many ways. For me, I'm just really impressed with the younger generation of Latinas that I'm seeing and that I follow and that I even learn from, because they're taking that narrative and they're saying, no, I'm starting my own business. I'm starting my own podcast. I am, I'm doing me. They're doing themselves, and they're taking those narratives, and there's some, I talk to them because I mentor them. I learn from them, but I also mentor them, and they're trying to navigate like those two worlds. And it's challenging because we want to honor our roots, right? We want to honor our heritage, but we also know it doesn't, like, we're in 2024 in the US. It's different here. So
Absolutely. And I would say that in general, not just Latinas, women in general, that's kind of the norms. Be pretty, be quiet, don't talk about money. Money is not something we talk about. I think in general, in families that maybe traditional kind of middle class, money is not something you talk about. Money is evil. So there are a lot of those preconceptions about money that you're not supposed, and what you said, like doing a good job and someone will notice you. I grew up that as well. I'm not Latina, so I think it kind of it is very common for women in general
yes.
that we feel uncomfortable kind of advocating for ourselves, asking for something. Asking for money is even a taboo. I mean, we don't want to talk about money.
What's really interesting about asking for money is, all the mentoring conversations that I have with, mostly, Latinos, Latinas and Latinos, is around money, like negotiating a package. How do I ask for more? Negotiating a promotion with a boss. It is all around money, but it's sort of like, I need help. It's very, it's very secretive. And, I've gotten, comments like, but what if they take away the offer? What if they, withdraw the offer if I ask for more? Right. And so there's fear behind it. But if we don't ask for it, I mean, if we don't ask for it, we just we will never get it. What I tell them is, listen, we are already at a disadvantage, right? Women or male, brown, Hispanic, and think about the Latina wealth pay gap. For every dollar a non-Hispanic white male earns, Latinas earn 57 cents on that dollar. So when you go in to negotiate, understand that the range that they're giving you or the package that they're giving you, it could be very well below a package that they would offer. So go in and negotiate and ask for that, thinking that mindset, not that, you're asking for more. You're asking for equal, right? That's the goal, right? That's the goal. So that helps, I think it helps me kind of have more confidence, right, when I ask. The other thing that I think, and I learned this through an executive coach of mine, is to think of negotiation as just a game, right? It's just a game. It's not personal. It's actually have some fun with it. And so I started doing that. Like, even recently, this was last summer, my air conditioner broke and I negotiated. I was like, okay, I haven't done this in a while. Let's negotiate. Let's have some fun with it. I won't go into all the stories, but it was like three companies. It started from $8,000 quote, and I negotiated down to $250 with three companies. And so
Wow.
I was stressed out about it. Obviously, like air conditioners not working in the house in the summer. Put on the negotiate. Let's have fun with this negotiation process and not fear, right? But enjoy it. Enjoy that process. So, um, yeah, so
That's a great tip. And I think that negotiation in general is a muscle, it is a muscle to be trained.
agree. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I heard, I think, a YouTube of someone, I don't recall her name, but she said she went to department stores and she tried to negotiate like a price of a shirt or whatever, like in Macy's or something. And yes, you don't expect them to actually give you a discount, but she actually said it once they even try to kind of come forward to her and try to make some arrangement. But it's not about getting the discount, it's about training that muscle.
Yes, I agree. I just negotiated with the dry cleaners yesterday. Like it is just like just enjoy it. It is a muscle, and I think the more we do that, the the less afraid and intimidated we are. We understand the data around, I mean, we have a whole day, Latina equal pay day, to bring awareness of the pay inequity,
Mhm.
so, you know,
Yeah. One last thing I want to say about that is to the employers, don't take advantage. Don't
yes.
take advantage. Not Latinas, not Black, not any person. Then don't ask for what they deserve. Give them what they deserve,
I agree.
regardless. If they ask less, give them what they should get.
I agree. And I would also say to um, I would also say, if you won't do that, right? Don't be surprised when your people leave. Just don't.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised. I remember I was in a role and I was killing it, right? I was achieving, I was getting recognition at the company level. My name, you know, uh, the highest level at the C-suite level. My name, shared at all hands, all this. And then when it came time for performance review, I did not get what I thought I deserved. So, I was like, "Mm-mm, no, I'm out of here." And so I promoted myself. I didn't get the promotion that I wanted, and that's fine because, listen, it's competitive, right? But I said, I'm going to promote myself, and I did. And I earned more, higher pay, higher level, etc. So you've got to really sort of balance that, right? If you're not going to pay, equity, it's the word, equitable, then your people will leave, but don't be surprised if they do.
Yes, and this is so true. If you don't pay well, people will leave. And I want to go now and talk about your book because this is so exciting. It's your first book and it's
Yes.
pre-launch and it
Yeah.
has a wonderful name, which I don't know how to pronounce as nice as you are, Latina Madrina. Please say that because you say it so beautifully.
Thank you. Yes, it's called Latina Madrina: Stories, Lessons, and Hard Truths from a Brown Latina in Tech. So I'm really excited about the launch of the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I want to ask you about just what inspired you to write it.
Yeah. So, when you think about when I think about my career, uh, it came out of really gratitude. I am very grateful. I feel very privileged in the position that I'm in. We mentioned that, Latinas are a fraction of a fraction. Leaders, Latina leaders, like there's not, it's a very small percentage. So the fact that I achieved that is, I'm just very grateful, proud of myself, right? I want to share. I want to share some of the lessons. I want to share some of the stories with other Latina leaders because there's not enough stories, because there's not enough of us. So I think we all have a story. We all have a book in us, right, to share about our experiences. And I want some kind of roadmap, right? Stories, lessons, so that others know they're not alone. They're not alone in this journey. So I'm still learning, right? Because I'm still in, life, living life and a career. And so I want to be able to provide that kind of roadmap so that we can get even more Latinas in leadership roles and ensure that they're not feeling alone in their career and their journey, because they don't have to. You don't have to. So I felt very much alone for a lot of my career. I don't want that for others, right? So there's things that we can do that can solve for that.
Perfect. And this is wonderful. And I want to get our listeners sneak peek and gonna talk about two chapters. So let's start with the chapter about money and generational wealth. So can
Yeah.
you share a little bit about this chapter?
Yes, I do a deep dive into this chapter about money and generational wealth. It is the longest chapter in the book. One of the main things that I talk about is, what are some of the things that we've been told about money as Latinos? What have we been told about money? What is your money mindset, right? So what is the story behind money? And then the language of money. Like, we've got to really understand the language of money and be learners of money. So I talk about, investments. I talk about, real estate. I talk about, entrepreneurship and solopreneurship. So there's a lot there. And I even give some examples of, what I did. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing what's worked for me, as well as what I'm learning from other people and who's influencing me. So we do a deep dive into money and building generational wealth. The one thing I'll share about generational wealth is, Latinos are the demographic. They they only a fraction of Latinos have generational wealth. And generational wealth, just to define it, right, just so that we're clear, is money that you're passing on to the next generation and the next generation after that. About 2% of Latinos are able to build generational wealth and leave generational wealth for their families. So I think it's critically important that we think about that and look at ways that we can build generational wealth for our families. I mean, we care about our families and providing for our families. So I think that's one of the chapters.
I think just for the chapter alone, worth reading the book because this is so important. And I would say it's important not just for Latinas. I haven't read it yet because obviously it's pre-launch, but I'm sure it's important for so many people and especially women.
I would agree. I think we don't talk about money enough. I keep saying it because it's true. We just don't talk about it enough. And there are reasons behind that. And I just think it's important to talk about it. It's a tool, it's a resource. It's not bad, right? I'm a woman of faith, I'm a Christian, and it's okay to talk about it. It's actually important to talk about it.
Yeah, I think that the whole relationship with money is something that I recommend everyone to work on and kind of change the wiring in your brain and
Yeah.
see money as a good thing, money
Yeah.
that brings you and your family the kind of life that you want.
Yes.
And I love money because it allows you to give back to
Yeah.
community that you believe in. It brings so much goodness to the
It
world.
does. Exactly. It brings so much goodness. Money's gotten a bad rap for sure.
Yes, for
Does
sure.
bring so much goodness. I agree. I agree with you.
And there was another chapter that I wanted just to touch on. You talk about cultural, generational trauma and career. Can you share just a little bit about
Yeah.
this chapter?
Yeah. That chapter also does a deep dive. Things to consider in terms of our mindset. And we've been talking about it this like whole
Yeah.
time. What are some of the things that we grown up with that we don't even realize that are impacting the way that we're managing our careers? So I talk a lot about that as well. I think that's really important to sort of really understand what's going on the inside, right? What are the messages and the lessons that we've been telling ourselves and that we've grown up with on the inside. So and how that impacts our career, how it doesn't serve us.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important. And I just want to mention that the book is pre-launch and we are going to share the link in the show notes so everyone can go and
So
buy it.
yes, very
This
excited. Very excited.
this is so exciting.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to ask you, Julissa, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience today? Something that maybe I forgot to ask you or you think is really important that you want to highlight?
Yes. You know, I talk about hard truths in the book, but I think it's also really important to talk about enjoying your career and the journey. Like this stuff is hard stuff, like looking at generational trauma and money, but there's also ensuring that you have joy in your career. Like I just believe strongly in that. I'm the kind of leader that I get things done through others and through relationships and influence, right? And so just because we're talking about these hard things doesn't mean that we cannot experience fun, joy in our careers as well. And whatever path that may take as a Latina leader or as a leader, right? So I just want to make sure that that's also clear, right? Enjoying the journey, having fun, because we're going to talk about hard stuff, but I think it's important to talk about the joys in it as well.
This is an incredible way to end this episode. Absolutely agree with you. We have to enjoy it because otherwise we just keep hustling all the time for the next big thing and we never enjoy it.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, it's been such a pleasure having you here, Julissa. How can people find you?
Yes. So in the link, we're going to have the book there. You can find me on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. I'll put also your LinkedIn URL there. Thank you so much for being here today. And
This has been,
congratulations.
yeah,
Congratulations on
thank
your
you.
book.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. And I just really appreciate the chat. Thanks.
Me too. Thank you for listening to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. This is your host, Limor Bergman Gross, and I want to encourage you to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Limor Bergman, and let me know. What do you think about the episodes? Feel free also to comment on Apple Podcasts and tell me, what do you want me to talk about? Which guests do you want me to bring? I really appreciate that, and have a wonderful day.